Hi, my name is Mostafa Minawi, and I'm a historian of Southwest Asia and Northeast Africa and their relationship to the wider imperial world in the late 19th and early 20th century. I'm also a professor of history at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York, in the United States. I first envisioned my current project more than a decade ago after finishing my first book titled Ottoman Scramble for Africa, which came out in English in 2016. I thought of the current project as a follow up, second project, to trace Ottoman imperialism and its claims to territories on the northern Somali coast all the way up to the Sudanese coast and the island of Suakin. Having explored the Ottoman participation in the so called Scramble for Africa, south of the provinces of Tripolitania and Benghazi, in the Sahara and the Lake Chad Basin, and later the role of international law and how it worked or didn't work for non Western imperial powers, I thought that Ottoman and Ethiopian imperialism in competition with European powers in the Horn of Africa would be yet another arena where I can critically examine some of those themes. I spent many years collecting material for that project and traveling in areas that I'm interested in, including Addis Ababa, the Somali coast from Berbera to Zeila, Djibouti. I visited archival places in Khartoum, London, libraries in Cambridge and Durham and Beirut, and of course, the main site of my archival research in Istanbul. Several major life events and global events, including the pandemic, have shifted my view of what I think is important to work on and put out there. So I ended up writing a completely different book instead of this one on the microhistory of global events titled Losing Istanbul, which came out in late 2022. But more recently, as the genocide in Gaza unfolded, and as a humanist questioning the state of academia and its relevance in light of the silence or even complicity in what was taking place, and as a Palestinian whose people were facing an immediate existential threat, my interest in writing something relevant became almost nagging. And thus my interest in this project was reignited, but with much reformulation. I started imagining it in a very different way. So I shifted my focus from Ottoman imperialism in Africa as a diplomatic history to the connections between European imperialism and Ottoman Ethiopian relations globally in relation to what was then an Ottoman territory, namely the land of Palestine, or Arzi Filistin, as it was referred to in Ottoman documents. The reorientation of the project to center Ottoman Jerusalem as a site of global history and the beginning of Western religious imperialism, while maintaining the perspective from the global south, particularly that of Istanbul and Addis Ababa, reignited my interest in this project. So during my time at ANAMED, I will use the thousands of documents that I have collected, as well as interviews and other forms of archival records that I've collected over really a decade, to continue writing a global history of a rooftop. The rooftop is Deir Sultan, which is part of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, or Kanisat al-Qiyamah in Arabic, or Kimame in Ottoman Turkish. All of that at the turn of the 20th century, and the trans-imperial connections between Istanbul and Addis Ababa, all via Jerusalem and the northern coast of Somalia. I'm also interested in more recent reflections of what was taking place more than a century ago, particularly in Northeast Africa, where several states, including Turkey, UAE, China, and the United States, to name a few, have taken direct and indirect interests, both economic and military, along the same area along the Red Sea coast of the African continent, as well as the conditions of what I call holy real estate in Jerusalem, as it's taking place under Israeli occupation today. Thank you.